Okay, here are the problems from the exponent worksheet. I'm going to do 1 through 8, even though I had you do 1 through 7. So the first couple of problems are pretty straightforward. This one you do in multiplication. So you're going to multiply the numbers. 3 times 2 is 6, easy. Now you have to do x9 times x4. But the rule was, when you multiply letters with powers, is you add the powers together. So you're just going to do 9 plus 4, which is 13. Very straightforward. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Now, this doesn't have a power, so put a 1 there. You do in y3 times y1. Well, there's 3 y's here, and then 1 more gives you 4. Right? Again, add the exponents. Very simple. Done. Nothing else you can do. Leave it alone. Now, the second problem involves division. So you're going to be subtracting, but you have to subtract in an intelligent and clever way. You start where the number is larger. So for instance, you have a 12, x12 and x4. The 12 is bigger. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to do 12, take away 4, right? Dividing the letters means you subtract the powers. Now, with the y's, though, the 6 is bigger. The larger power is on the bottom. So I'm going to put this on the bottom and do 6, take away 3. On top, 12 minus 4 is 8. On the bottom, 6 minus 3 is 3. Remember, we do not do negative exponents in this class. No negatives. No negatives are allowed. So you don't just do 3 minus 6. That's not a positive number. You always start with the larger number. And if that's on the bottom, then you put it on the bottom. There are more y's downstairs and upstairs, so you're going to put them in the correct place. All right, so that's the first 2. We're going to do the next 2. All right, the next 2. This one is a power to a power, but you have a number here. So remember what it means to do the third power. I'm going to take this and multiply it 3 times. Don't do this, but I want you to understand why it works. Right? That's what it means, right? Third power. Do that 3 times. So what you're really doing is you're taking -2 and doing it to the third power. And you're taking x to the 5th and you're doing it to the third power. Here I have a rule that says when you do a power to a power, you multiply them together. So 5 times 3 is 15. But here, this is not a rule. This is -2 multiplied 3 times. So you're doing 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2, 4. 4 times 2, 8, not 6. And it's negative because you have an odd, right? There's 3 negatives. So you're going to get -8, right? If you did -2, -2, and -2, right? That's plus and then that's minus. 2, 2, 2 makes 8. Easy peasy, right? Just follow the rules. Take your time, do it carefully. These aren't difficult questions. I mean, they're just to see if you know the rules. Like this one. You have 7m2p4, and you're trying to add it with m4p2. Now, they look really similar. They have similar powers, and the letters are the same. However, they're not the same creature. You know, M2 and M4 are different creatures right there. If you see the powers are different, no, you can't do shit there. What can you do? You can't combine this. They're different. You know, it's like 7 apples and 3 bananas. You got 10 pieces of fruit. But you don't have 10 bananas or, 10 apples. If they're different, you can't combine them, so you even do nothing. There's nothing to do. All right, we're going to do 2 more. Okay, so number 5, basic combining the like terms. You're going to distribute. You're going to hop the fence. Distribute. You're going to get a bunch of terms there. You're going to get x's and you're going to get numbers. There's nothing else but x's and numbers. So one at a time, you're going to do 4 times x. 4x, we're totally right. You're going to do 4 times a +3, which is +12. Over here, you're going to do 6 times x, which is +6x. Then you're doing +6 times -5, -30. Now again, put together the things that look the same. These look the same. They both have x's. These are numbers without a letter. They're going to go together. Put together the creatures that go together. You have 4 x's and 6 x's. You have 10 x's. You don't get a different creature when you're counting them. I mean, if you had 4 apples and 6 apples. You don't have 10 apples squared. You don't get a different creature. You're just counting how many of that thing you have. Okay, so if you had 4 X's and 6 X's, you get 10 X's, not a different thing. $12, you lose 30. You're in debt now. You only had 12, you lost 30. Subtract those numbers and keep the larger sign. When you subtract them, you get 18, and you keep the sign of the larger number, which is negative. So distribute, collect. Very simple, straightforward. Now 6 is very similar to 4 in that you have letters and powers that you're trying to add together. You want to do the top of this fraction first before you mess with the division. Never do the division first. Always combine the top if you can. So the question is, can you add the top? And the answer is yes. You have the x squared y creature. Both of them are identical. Same letters, same powers. So what you do is you do the top, add the numbers in front. 3 plus 6 is 9. And you keep these the same. Why do you keep them the same? Because you're adding. All I'm doing is counting how many I have. If you're just counting, you have an object laying on the floor. You have blocks, and you're counting them. All of a sudden, do you have something different? Or instead of blocks, now you have video games. Just because you counted them? You have 3 of this one thing, and then you find 6 more of them, of the same thing. So now you have 9 of that thing. You don't have 9 of a different thing. So it's important you don't change them when you're just counting them, right? Adding is counting. So this doesn't change. It's x squared y. Now you have to divide that by 3xy. But this is very simple to do. The numbers you divide like numbers, right? 9 divided by 3. It's just numbers. But the letters have a rule to follow. The letters say that when you're dividing them, you want to subtract the powers. So first do 9 divided by 3. That makes 3. You have x2 divided by x1. Subtract them. 2 minus 1 is 1. But you have a y and a y. Y divided by y is 1. When you divide something by itself, cross it out, it's a 1. It goes away. So that answer is just 3x. So I combined the top, and then I did the division on the bottom. I'll do 2 more. Okay, so the last 2. So even though you only had to do through 7, I'm doing a bonus one. Now, these are much more advanced than the earlier problems, and they require you to be significantly more careful. Here, you're doing a multiplication. So unlike addition, when you're multiplying things with letters, the powers will change, right? You're not just counting how many you have. You're actually doing a product. So things are going to be altered. So just like problem number 1, if you ignore the bottom of this, I've got paper, but I wrote it on. I mean, if you ignore the bottom and just look at the top, it's basically question 1. You multiply the numbers together. 5 times 6 is 30. And then you're going to do x2 times x2. But x2 and x2, when you times them, right? There's 2. There's 2, right? You add the powers together. You get x4, right? That's what x2 is, x2 and x2. Then you have y and y third. So you got to be careful. This is a y1, and that's a y3. So that's going to make y4. Now, on the bottom, you have a 2. You have x squared. You have y to the 5th. So again, you have to be super careful here. This is division. These are numbers. You don't do 30 take away 2. Why? Because it's not. It's 30 divided by 2. It's x4 divided by x2. The rule when you're dividing letters is to subtract the powers. But if you have 30 divided by 2, hello, just cut 30 in half. Half of 30 is 15. Now, I have x4 and I have x2. Which one's bigger? 4. So I'm going to do 4 take away 2. Now, look at the y's though. He's bigger. So you're going to do 5 take away 4. You are not going to do 4 take away 5. That is incorrect. Don't deal with negatives here. So 15 stays. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I get x2 on the top. 5 take away 4 is y to the 1st, right? y1. You don't have to write the 1, but I'm going to write it for emphasis. Okay? So you had 4 x's on top, 2 on the bottom. When you cross them out, you're left with 2 upstairs. You had 4 y's on top and 5 on the bottom. That leaves you with 1 on the bottom when you cross them out. I mean, if you were to write it all out, don't you dare do this, right? If you had 4 upstairs and 5 downstairs, cross out, cross out, cross out, cross out. You're left with 1 downstairs. All right, that's why it works. That's how it works. Now this one, monstrous. There's so many things. Do them one at a time. You have to do a power to a power. So you're going to multiply those powers. So that's going to be x24. Now you have x7 goes along for the right. Now the bottom, I may as well put them together. You're multiplying, so you add 8 plus 11 is 19. But then I have to add the ones on the top too. I have 24 plus 7. That makes 31, if I'm not mistaken. And you have 19 on the bottom. Again, the top is greater. So I'm going to do 31, take away 19, right? You subtract them. So I believe that's 12. You can double check me on a calculator. All right, so all the rules combined in that question. Power to a power, multiplying and dividing, all in one shot. So power to a power, you multiply. When you're multiplying the letters, you add the powers. And when you're dividing the letters, you subtract the powers. So those are the first 8. So hopefully this is helpful.